We collected a large data set from the Facebook social network. We had an app called My Personality. So anyone could come to this app, take a real personality questionnaire, answer 100 questions about themselves, and they got feedback on the results, and that was their incentive for doing it. But they also opted into our study, and about 30% of them shared their Facebook data with us. And that gave us, so it's worth saying that 6 million people did this in total, so we got a large data set. But the people who opted into sharing their data, they not only took questionnaires about their personality, about their impulsivity, about their music likes, about their values, about their IQ, about their passion towards work scale, how much they like their work or not, or the different ways that they like or don't like their work. But they also shared Facebook data with us as well. Demographic things like gender, date of birth, but also the Facebook likes, which we've used in some of the slides we just showed you. Things like where they live, where they work, the wall posts and status updates, so the things that they're essentially sort of tweeting about on Facebook, so we can look at the actual text that they're using as well. They also shared their social network with us. So you can see not only that this is someone who's taken our test, but here's their friends, and how do their friends group together? Are their friends with each other? Are they someone important within their social network? Are they kind of in the middle of the things, or are they fairly near the edge? Do they have lots of friends? Are they a big social network, or just a few close friends? These are all films liked by people 30 and above. On the left are male films, and on the right are female films. But we've got another introversion-extroversion scale on the left there. So the ones near the bottom, Super Troopers, Dumb and Dumber, are quite different from the ones at the top, Firefly and Star Wars. So I'm a geeky person, so I know Firefly and Star Wars, but I don't think I've ever seen Dumb and Dumber. And the same thing with the female films. Labyrinth is more introverted, and Dirty Dancing is more extroverted.
So this is again kind of looking at the psychology behind online preference. So why is it that people of the same age, the same demographic qualities, like different things, and how do you begin to explain these? So you see here another example, so Clockwork Orange and Wedding Crashers, two great films by all means, and you'll see that actually the demographic profile of the audience that likes these things on Facebook is actually very similar. So slightly male on average, kind of average number of friends, slightly more likely to be in a relationship, and they're kind of between 23 and 29. So just looking at only the demographics doesn't tell you very much information about what the difference between these two audiences is. However, you'll see that the psychological profile of the people who like these objects on Facebook is actually very, very different. In fact, it's almost the opposite in many traits. So what you have here is a Big Five personality profile for these two objects, and we use Big Five because it's a very reliable way of describing personality. There are other indexes too, but Big Five translates very well across cultures and ethnicities and so on. So you'll see that people who like A Clockwork Orange are very liberal and artistic. They're spontaneous and impulsive as opposed to being well organized, and they're very competitive as opposed to being kind of team-working profile. They also tend to be higher in IQ than the average population, but slightly unhappier. So this is kind of intended to illustrate that looking only at demographics doesn't always, or very rarely actually, will give you actionable kind of where do you go next. So how do we now talk to these different people? How do we split them up if we're trying to promote the same product or the same message to them? So as David showed with music likes, you can also look at language. So language is very important in tailoring, but normally the issue you have is, okay, we understand that some people will respond to some types of vocabulary and phrases, but how do you actually do this in practice? How do you know what those phrases are and what those words are? So we looked at causes on Facebook. So again, using the keys, so these are causes. So for example, Save the Tigers, Stop Animal Cruelty, and so on. But what you see is that the overlap, so here, these are things that if you like this, you're likely to like this as well. It's kind of the overlap that you see. And what's happening behind it is actually very neurotic people, so people who are in touch with their emotions, tend to respond better to words like help, save, so save the tiger, save the tiger, save a girl child, help the hungry, and so on. Whereas people who are low in neuroticism, so more emotionally stable people, use words like stop, prevent, fight, even if it's actually for the same cause. So you have the fight animal cruelty here, I think, which you can see is the audience for that cause is very emotionally stable. Whereas here, for a similar kind of overlapping save the tiger trade, stop the tiger trade, sorry. It's kind of far more people who are in touch with their emotions and more neurotic. So you can look within the same cause or the same object or the same demographic group and explain the differences using psychological traits. So one of the case studies we run was with an insurance brand trying to sell student room insurance, so kind of a youth insurance product. And what we did was we said, okay, everybody needs insurance. Whether or not you're young or old, it makes no difference. The kind of demographic targeting doesn't really make sense. But you still have to sell insurance to different groups of people. So we did very simple kind of psychological targeting using only conscientiousness scale. So let's split up well-organized people from disorganized or spontaneous people. We generated keywords which corresponding to each profile. So we said, okay, conscientious people like these things and spontaneous people like these things. And we used them to run a split study with the agency, comparing basically click-through rates of the different lists. And we outperformed an agency whose job is to be who knows the insurance market, and we're kind of unfamiliar with it, by 45% on average for the top segments. And you can see that here in the conversion rate. So actually, even a very simple kind of psychological targeting using only one of the big 5 scales can have a huge impact in practice. So you'll see here on the left, 2 ad variants. So we're selling a crossword app is our product. And we say, okay, let's split it up into 2 groups, the introverted people and the extroverted people. And we made 2 adverts. So the top one is for introverts, kind of shows someone playing on their own, and there's a tailored copy, and the same for the extroverted group. And we sent them out in a Facebook campaign and compared the results. So the first thing you see is that, so the red line is the introverts. The first thing you see is the targeting effect. So you're getting much higher click-throughs for introverts on the product than you are for extroverts. But even within the introverted group, so even here, you'll see that introverts still prefer the introverted ad. So they still prefer the ad in the top left. And this is basically the tailoring effect. So even though it's the same product, actually changing the copy and changing the photo that you use to match the psychological traits has a huge impact in terms of click-through rates and conversion.